Hello and welcome to a new video, where today, with the recent release of Arkham Knight, I dive, cowl first, into the character of the Batman. And the best way to understand Batman is to look at some of his biggest enemies and how they reflect some aspect of him. After all, as Arkham Origins itself said, your enemies will define you. Now obviously, for a few reasons, there's going to be villains I miss. Whether it be for A, time, B, there are someone like Crazy Quilt or the Calculator, who I'm not going to be talking about, or C, I just don't have a good explanation for him, like Poison Ivy, who reflects Batman's gardening skills. So, without further ado, let's rock. Understanding the Batman. Rogue Reflections. I said I'd talk about his biggest enemies, so let's start with one of his literally biggest enemies. Bane, the juiced up muscle man who broke the bat. And while it's true that some portrayals of the character have just been a mindless brute, it's important to remember that he isn't just mindlessly following orders, and is instead acting upon his own intentions and plans. The reason I say this is to explain what he represents in the Batman. He represents his physical strength and intimidation, as well as the brutality he can show towards the crooks of Gotham. And running parallel to this, we have the Scarecrow, who represents the mental aspect rather than the physical. The Scarecrow uses methods like his fear gas combined with appropriately a Scarecrow costume to intimidate and mentally break his adversaries using fear as a tool to do so, which is something Batman is known to frequently do. After all, the reason he chose the persona of Batman was due to the fear he had of bats as a child, and he adopted this to strike that same fear into others to intimidate them into changing their ways. But Bane and Scarecrow do these things for evil, while Batman acts with good intentions, so it's totally justified and different from what those guys do, and you are therefore a poo-poo head idiot. I hear you say, voice in my head. However, as the expression goes, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And there is a character in the Batman universe who really shows this. Ra's al Ghul, a man who is the next level of vigilantism as the leader of a group with the goal of saving the world and cleaning up the scum of humanity. Except for him, he has decided that scum is essentially all of humanity, which means that his good intention goal leads to attempts at genocide, which is not so good a thing. And this puts him into direct conflict with Batman. And this also shows what could happen if Batman took his own vigilante justice too far and becomes too much of a one-man judge, jury and executioner of justice. So far I've only talked about Batman, but there is actually two sides to him, Batman and Bruce Wayne, which rather intentionally segues into the next villain, Two-Face. Now the obvious comparison is that he represents this Batman-Bruce duality of a man, but I have another theory for the character, which will require me to explain the character a bit. Two-Face, aka Harvey Dent, was formerly a defense attorney fighting for justice before becoming horribly disfigured on half his face, making it look like he had two faces, hence the name. This caused him to become a violent criminal who would decide his victim's fate based on the flip of a coin. What I think this represents is a struggle between justice, i.e. Harvey Dent face, and personal retribution, i.e. Scary Face, which is something Batman himself can struggle with due to the legitimate reasons he has for hating some of those criminals. I mean, there is the whole "my parents were murdered, now I'm gonna go punch people" thing going on with him. A minute ago, I talked about how he has two sides, with Batman and Bruce. So let's look at the relationship between the two with another character, Roman Sionis, aka Black Mask. Roman is a former businessman from a wealthy family who, after failings with his company, donned a black mask to commit crimes incognito. However, this mask ended up permanently burned onto his face, becoming his new identity. What this represents is the possibility of Bruce being consumed by his own mask, with the identity of Batman eclipsing the man that is Bruce Wayne, as he becomes the Batman, rather than the normal man underneath. Well, as normal as you can be while super rich and able to buy or make anything you want, including supercars. And speaking of his wealth, there are other characters from wealthy families in this universe, including Oswald Cobblepot, aka the Penguin. And what's interesting is that the Penguin does not reflect Batman, instead reflecting Bruce Wayne. He represents the potential corruption of money, as well as the greed in the pursuit of status and power that can often be associated with extreme wealth. You could make the same kind of argument for Hush as well, but no point repeating myself, and he's less popular than Penguin, so sorry, goodbye Hush. Well, thanks for watching. That's it for this video, but don't worry, this is only part 1. There's still a second part to come soon, and in that one, we will be tackling a very big figure in the Batman universe. You could say he's a bit of a card. Yeah, it's the Joker. Obviously it's the Joker.